So you are at a stage in your career, Sri, where from a great manufacturing nation, US moved all manufacturing out of the country, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, you are, you did something contra, right? Which is because you are actually, all manufacturing pretty much moved out of the US.
Mhm.
You still, pursued with the manufacturing,
Yeah.
domain that you
Yeah.
started in. Was
Mhm.
there any specific reason you saw opportunity? What did you see which others did not see?
That's a great question again. Uh, so I was always fascinated by manufacturing early on. All my cousins and they're all in manufacturing, and so that influenced me definitely. So most of my career, I was lucky enough to work for private companies. And my first job was with a steel manufacturing company, Charter Steel, in the headquartered in Wisconsin. They're a privately owned, family-owned company, and the Mellows family, they had a philosophy: no layoff policy.
Okay.
And even when the business was down, they guaranteed 35 to 40 hours of paid work for their employees. When other companies and steel mills were laying off the people, the employees will come in. They may paint or clean up, do something. They may not produce steel, but they got paid. And what it allowed them to do was be ready when the upturn came. And they actually invested. They bought new equipment, and we did a lot of project work during downturns. It's a fascinating philosophy. And when I started, that company was like 150, $200 million company, and I think they were now $1 or $2 billion company. I don't keep track of them, anymore. So it organically they grew, and it still is maintained as a family-owned business. So to me, there is always a way to be successful if you have. If you have a clear path and a clear thought, in a lot of ways, I think Indian businesses, I've seen it over the years. They don't do a lot of mass layoffs and things like that. They still run it as a family, started companies. I go back to my TVS days. I see notes about the Kirloskar and the Tatas and some of the Indian companies. They do the same thing, and I think culture has to do with it. And some of the Indian U.S. companies are also the same way. And another company, Swagelok, again, is a family-owned company, and they acted the same way. And they thrive, and they still thrive. Even when other industries, their peer groups were suffering, they always thrived. So, I was fortunate enough to be in those companies, and I always moved up in those companies. So I didn't really see a need to jump and say, "Oh, I'm going to be an IT person." And then after 15 years, sometimes it's kind of a little typecast, right? It's like acting, the actors are typecast into a role. That did happen. But, going back to your question, how do you change your career? So that's why, curiosity. I also got bored and doing the same job after a few years, and I always wanted to do something different, better. The one thing I always kind of try to do is, how do I do my boss's job?
Hmm.
This is something I learned somewhere, and if I can do my boss's job, my idea is that they will see me value, and they will promote me to those roles. And that did happen. So yeah, that's why I stayed with the manufacturing. I still love it. Uh,
So, in this section, Sridhar talks about doing your boss's job. That's pretty different from what I've heard. Most often, what I've heard is, hey, this is my role, this is my description of what I have to do, and this is what I'm supposed to do. So, when you take up something, when you really start saying, how do I do my boss's job, there are a couple of things that you're putting in the doc. One is your knowledge of how you can solve a problem far ahead of your capability. The second one is preparing for it. And the third one is ensuring that you become successful in that. And he also talks about another important philosophy of his value systems and his beliefs aligning with some of the family owned business in the US, where there are no mass layoffs. There are times when they're being paid when there is a downturn. They go and clean up factories, get prepared for an upturn in the business cycle. So there was this philosophy that he believed in, having come from a culture like India, and therefore his alignment of the value systems and beliefs, and therefore the kind of job that he started picking up and then doing the boss's job. I think if you want to build successful careers, you need to look at all these anomalies and all these interconnections, and that allows you to build a career with a purpose.